Hello and welcome to Vince TV. I'm your co-pilot and host, Finn Samuel, along with my co-pilot for today, Eddie Chappell. Eddie, welcome to Vince TV.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we have a very special show. This show is going to be powered by the Fintroopers. That's our May the first episode with special guest Jay Mendel from another Dolphin podcast. We're going to have a great time today. Oh, it was a adventurous weekend last week. The NFL draft, the Dolphins has some up and downs according to the fans and the critics. We're going to talk about that during the show. Uh, Uh, what do I want to start right away? I want to know your first thoughts. What are your first thoughts about the draft and what Chris Weir and Mike O'Donnell did do with the draft?
I believe they did a pretty good job at filling holes. I'd say defensive end. Um, on your point from way back, you thought that's who they were going to draft, a defensive end. You weren't sure which one, whoever was there.
No.
It probably was the biggest need on the roster if you looked at it just because of an injury aspect of if them two guys are ready or not. I know they can be feeling good now, but it just takes one little setback. And of course, they're way more important for the second. Of course, I'm talking about Phillips and uh, Chubb for the second half of the season than they are for the first. And they doubled down on that with taking the kid from Colorado State, Mo. Um, Help me out with his last name. It's hitting my
Let me run it.
Kamara, Mo Kamara.
Mo Camara.
Yeah. Um, who is just a production machine. I think he's they might have got a steal there. He's one of them guys that's going to come right in with a chip on his shoulder, and because he is not happy on where he was picked in the draft. Second round pick left to be determined to see if Butch Berry can do some magic. I know the Dolphins really liked him. So who am I to criticize what they like and what they see in the kid? Um, I would have preferred in there an interior offensive lineman because
Hmm?
that's or one of the picking a guy that can play guard for now and swing out to tackle later would have been nice. But there's some free agents out there left they can plug in for a year, and that's all I'm looking for down the road is for a year for free agency. The two receivers, you never know because it was so late in the draft when they were picked. I think one was the sixth round, correct, and one was the
Yes.
seventh.
Yes.
Both Washington, the law firm, and so I mean, I love what I see of them. A lot of people think we got a steal with both of them, but like I said, where they were picked, you don't know, so you can't count on them guys. Running back, home run out of the park. That kid, that might be A Chain Jr. right there, A Sean, however you want to say his name. He's he wasn't he was supposed to be a third down back last year for Tennessee, and he just took over from that starter, and he's an explosive play waiting to happen out on the field. That's for sure.
Absolutely. What I found interesting was that I remember a while ago where I'm not sure if it was Jimmy Johnson or probably after he left, but right in the 90s. The Dolphins drafted Lorenzo Blumen and Kenny Mixon. They complemented each other so well. One stopped the run and was in early downs was the run stopper, and Lorenzo Blumen was that pass rusher type that would come in. So Chuck Robinson and Mo Kamara complement each other. The Dolphins might have something over here. I want to go to the clip of uh, Chuck Robinson getting drafted. We're going to talk a little bit more about Chuck Robinson.
Okay.
Hello?
What's up, man? How you doing? Chris Greer from the Dolphins. Here with Coach McDaniel.
Let's do it.
Hey, you guys are a great addition to the team, and we're happy to make you a Miami Dolphin, man.
Are you okay with that? You good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
We love your passion, man. We love how you play. We couldn't be more fired up for you. The impact you're going to have on our team, but we really enjoy getting to know you as a person, too, man.
Here is the commissioner of the NFL with the latest Dolphins first-round selection.
With the 21st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Chop Robinson, linebacker, Penn State.
We're going to Miami.
There's James Franklin in there.
There he is, yeah.
Go to Miami. Go to Miami. I told you. Yeah, we good now.
This is a need as referenced, and this is a fastball off the edge in Chop Robinson.
When I answered, it didn't go through. Now, they said they called me 3 times, but they ended up calling my agent. Finally got that call. I'm so excited. I'm feeling great.
Well, it was such a great moment. It's such a great theater, that moment when they call off that. And Chad Robinson certainly proved he wanted to be a Dolphin.
Yeah, he there's another one out there. He was hoping Pittsburgh didn't take him. I don't know if you've seen that one or not. And he was
That's what I call the bizarro Minka Fitzpatrick. He couldn't wait to get out of Miami to go to Pittsburgh. He didn't want to go to Pittsburgh, wanted to go to Miami.
opposites. He was glad he wasn't picked by the Rams because of the state taxes. He wanted to be a Dolphin, and that's important. I mean, that's everything Chris Greer has done is about players that want to be on this team, and I love that. And for Chop, very happy for him and his family. He could not have been happier to be a Dolphin, and that was awesome.
And what's interesting is that we lost a lot of personality when Chris Wilkins leaving the Dolphins. Charles Robinson certainly looks like he has a lot of personality.
Yes, he definitely does.
I love Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul is also a player that looks like he has a lot of personality.
He looks like a trip.
Yes, absolutely. Next, we're gonna go to. I want to share your thoughts. I know you did a lot of great digging for us on Fizz TV for the draft. I want to get your thoughts of what Mel Kiper said about the Dolphins draft.
Feels like it's been a while since the Dolphins had a first-round pick. They've been, of course, maybe because of all the trades they made, like Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb, etc. Let's take a look at their draft. Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, Jalen Wright, Muhammad Kamara, Malik Washington, Mel. Your thoughts? I feel like you would probably argue that this draft got better as it went along for Miami after a couple of players early that maybe you weren't quite as high on.
Exactly. Chop Robinson to me is a roll of the dice. He has a situation where you got a great workout, but you didn't have the production. If you can be that good and that athletic and that physically gifted, why in the world didn't you dominate? Why didn't you have a ton of sacks? Why did you have just 2 against UMass and not much against anybody else? I don't get. Patrick Paul needs some work. He gets sloppy with his technique. Jalen Wright's a fast running back. You know they like fast guys, McMillan and company. That's what they go by. I think their best pick was Mohamed Kamara. I think he might have been the best pick in this draft field. I think he may be a better player ultimately than Chop Robinson coming off the edge. You can believe that. A 5th-round pick better than a guy who went in the first round at 21. That was a 158 better than the guy who went early. I think he could be. And I like some of the other things they did late. I think when you look at where we are with Malik Washington, slot receiver, productive at 2 different schools. I love that. At Virginia, he showed he can be that slot guy. It's tough to deal with. So Jalen Wright, Malik Washington is going to help their offense. Patrick Paul needs to be developed, needs to be coached. Chop Robinson determines everything. If Chop can become a sack guy, and I think Mo Kamara is going to be a really good situational pass rusher because remember, Chubb and Phillips are coming off significant injuries. Then this Miami Dolphins team in the AFC East with Josh and Rodgers and Tua and the AFC in general, they did a good job overall if this happens to really come to light. If it comes to fruition where Chop becomes a big-time player. He's the whole draft for me. Everything revolves around Chop Robinson. and that's going to determine A or C. And then Mo Kamara, if Mo Kamara makes up for Chop, or he's as good as what Chop is, then that's a home run, a grand slam. So this is going to be a really fun draft to see how these guys develop. How are they coached? Patrick Paul to it in the second round. So, and we know Jalen Wright. I love the kid. Give him a little crack, and the boy, he can go. He is going to be another fear factor player on that offense. I think Malik Washington will be as well.
Yeah, Malik Washington. He's the slow guy in that Miami offense, by the way. He only runs a 4.47. Kid, of course. He is a very fast man, but when you have
42 and a half vertical too, Phil.
That's right. Yeah, but when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, everybody else feels slow in comparison. All right,
Well, Mel certainly didn't not hold back. The Dolphins universally got a B mostly from all the pundits. Even Pete Prisco, who usually critical of the Dolphins, giving the Dolphins draft a B. I'm not sure if Mel giving a B or a C, but he certainly didn't look too happy about the.
He was a B. He was a
was
B.
a B. But he didn't look for giving them a B. You can just say he doesn't look very happy about the choice of Chop Robinson.
Right. Well, let's see. These are draft experts, not actual NFL personnel. Where Chop was rated anywhere, from what I've read and researched, from 15 to 21.
Yes,
it's where they had him rated. The guys that we're going to draft. Not people like me or Mel or anything like that. So they keep bringing up this production. Why didn't he have production in college if he's so good? Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? First off, he destroyed Michigan's game plan on the first 2 plays they tried to pass. Then they ran the ball 32 straight times because of Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson was blocked with 3 players a lot of games. All right, now let's go back to the production. If production means you're going to be great in the NFL, we'll start with Daniel Hunter, who just signed a huge contract with the Houston Texans from Minnesota. Has had 87.5 sacks in his NFL career. That's a pretty good statistic. You know how many college sacks he had? 4.5. Why didn't he dominate? Because you're in college. Things are different. We can bring it home. Olivier Vernon. I don't know if you liked Olivier or not. I loved Olivier.
I love it. Yes.
I was sad that they let him go. In college, 9 sacks, 63 in his NFL career, including 29 in his first couple years with the Miami Dolphins. Here's my favorite one: 11.5 sacks in college and 114 sacks in the NFL. J.J. Watt. So sacks do not determine productivity, and that's all I can go on. The physical traits of Chop Robinson can't be taught. You can't create them in a lab. You can't stick a guy in the weight room. I mean, you can. You're going to get him stronger than he is. I have no idea what his bench was because not a lot of players did the bench for some reason at the combine. I read it was because before they used to do it the day before the draft or the combine, and this year that they wanted to do it the same day as you're running your 40s and doing your drills. So you're not going to want to do the bench before you do any of that stuff. So I do not agree with the production being poor means it was a reach as a pick. Stats are stats. A disruptor is a disruptor. And that's all we can really ask for him is to disrupt the timing of the offense. Because
that's their job. Yes, that basically that is.
Because guess what? Sometimes when you don't get the sack, it turns into what? An interception, which is better than a sack. And also, Chop can play up the middle and rush. I've seen him just from film, bulldoze the center, knock him over, and make the quarterback sprint out. It's something we're going to need without Wilkins there. I mean, I think Sealer's going to do just fine in there. I think we got a star on our hands.
Yes.
Now that the light will be on him, but it wasn't a reach. It wasn't a bad pick, and I do not know why. And plus, sorry to get off track.
Oh, please go ahead.
Penn State puts out great rushers, great linebackers. Look at the kid from Baltimore. I am not going to attempt his name. but the year he had last year was amazing, and he had the same kind of numbers as Chop did. And uh, Micah Parsons,
Michael
look
Parsons,
at it,
yes.
the disruptor.
And
Going
Michael Parsons came to the NFL with a lot of criticism.
a
This was not a
lot of
complete
people,
player, etc.,
yeah,
etc.
they said he was lazy. He had
Yes,
all kinds of questions about him, but
yes.
you just don't know. These guys grow up, and I think it was a great pick. Um, I fell in love with him right away when I started doing all the analysis for our little show here, and he moved up my board quick. And don't get me wrong, I loved your player. You loved Leju.
No,
I
uh,
did. I loved.
uh,
I got worried when I heard he had to learn how to do a tackle different than a normal tackle. I didn't
yeah.
want. I think he's going to be good as long as the kid stays healthy, and I really do wish he stays healthy because I'm a big fan of his. I didn't want you to think I wasn't. It's just that injury. We have enough injuries.
That what would that would have been another injured player for the Dolphins, or a player with an injury history. For the record, when we had our mock draft for here for Fins TV, we selected Jetverse. After the draft,
Yes.
I felt a little bit uncomfortable. Like, man, I feel like he has a ceiling and he's close to the ceiling. And you pounded the table so much for Chop Robinson in our talks before the draft. And I was driving the car all from work to home and say, before, just you didn't know that, but this is true. But man, you maybe should have gone with Chuck Robinson, because he's younger, the ceiling is higher. But yeah,
Yeah. He's
who
20
would
years
have
older.
known? Yeah, who would have known that actually the Dolphins went for the player you were binding the table for
I
Chuck?
know. I need a
That,
job in the NFL. I guess.
that's a, that's a great story. That's a great story. Chad Robinson, of course, a younger player, not a complete player by any means, but
No.
like you said, so many players come to the NFL that are not a finished product. So we'll see what happens. But the physical tools are there, the speed you cannot teach. Cameron Wake had to go to Canada to develop his skills,
Yes.
and even when he came back to the Dolphins, he went to the Giants, he went to Canada, came back to the Dolphins. He
Mhm.
was not a complete player. Jason Taylor, he was projected to be by Sport Illustrated and many pundits to be a first round pick from Akron, and he went to in the third round, late third round, to the Dolphins. The first years he could not stop the run. Nick
No,
Saban used
he
to
could
bash
not.
him, used to chew him out because you could not stop the run. That would probably was going to happen. He's gonna like I say, it's gonna be a baptism by fire probably for Chap Robinson, because he's gonna have to learn by making a lot of mistakes. He's gonna play a lot early. So Chap Robinson, has a chance to take advantage of the situation with Jason Phillips on a limited basis and Bradley Chubb out. He's gonna have a lot of time to probably take the field and have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah,
Do you
he's
agree
going
with
to
that?
get a lot of practice reps for sure. That's a good thing. He's gonna eat up the practice reps.
Absolutely. And again, Mo Kamara is going to be a pretty good company. A guy who comes angry to the NFL, says, I'm mad so many picks pass on me. If he finds a way to channel that, the Dolphins is going to have a good tandem for years to come.
Right, like I always said, Bill Belichick really couldn't pick players. He couldn't, but he sure could find players that were mad,
Yes. The
and
ship,
that's how
say
they made.
out.
Yeah, that's how they made their teams with players that were disrespected or felt disrespected, I should say. And
Rodney Harrison, Junior
Tom
Seau, Randy
Brady,
Moss.
Tom
Yes.
Brady, the sixth round, and I mean Tatum, whatever he turned into, one hell of a player, and he just did that with everybody.
Absolutely. I want to talk very quickly on Patrick Paul.
Sure.
Patrick Paul comes from Houston. Of course, that's not a program known for developing great offensive linemen. A lot of offensive linemen
No.
have gone in the second round. Some has spun out okay, some has flopped. Just because of that, the guy hasn't had a. If maybe he would have gone to Michigan, to Ohio State, to Notre Dame, he would have been a surefire top 10 pick. Those attributes you cannot teach. The guy is huge, moves very well. Has to the length is. It has a bigger length that Akitetompo from the Milwaukee Bucks. That guy is huge. Those
Yeah,
arms are
he is
massive.
big.
He's huge. So the physical two traits are there. So if you can have it, that that teaching, that coaching in the NFL under Bush Barry and Mike McDaniel, the sky's the limit. What do you think about that?
I think that he is definitely going to take a year to develop, but which I'm thinking about this year, but we have next year coming up. Armstead's probably going to retire. If
Mhm.
not, he's got this year and next year at the most.
Mhm.
And there's your replacement if you can teach. All you
And
got to do.
what a great guy to be under.
That's what
Armstead
I mean.
is a
You
great
know,
communicator, great teacher, also.
he is going to help because there's one thing he's not like what Brett Favre did to Aaron Rodgers and said, "Now this is my job. You can learn. You're you're on your own, kid." You know, Armstead's going to help in any ways he can. That's why I'm glad he's stuck another year, Armstead. I mean, it would be great to get a full season out of him. Maybe the stars are aligning and we will, but just learn from him, learn from Butch Berry, Mike McDaniel. Our offensive coordinator was a great offensive line coach, Frank Smith. He'll help too. Just keep him. You got to keep him to where he's learning something every day and to keep his head up because he has everything you need. He was his arms are longer. He's bigger than that guy that went in the first round, Mims from Georgia.
Yes. Mhm.
He started 44 games. He got away with a lot of stuff because of the conference he played in, of course. Um, like you said, if he went to a better school, he might, we probably would have never seen him. He might have been a top 10 pick if he would have learned under a great uh, coach. That's not
No,
knocking Houston's program.
no, it's not.
It's just a
It's
smaller
reality.
school,
So
a
that
smaller, not a small school, but it plays in a weaker conference. So he definitely has the ability, and that was the other thing I liked about chopping him. These are picks for not just now. This is to start resetting for a cap when the guys start to retire, or you got to move on for some people, and you can just go right into the next, just like the good teams do. You don't have to tear everything down and rebuild. You just keep adding every year, and next year's another great year to add because they're going to have plenty of picks for once.
yeah, we talked about before. Our friend Matt Armstrong, panelist on the show, we talk about so much about the redundancy of the Dolphins. That's
Yes.
basically what they're doing. They're stacking the layers. They're finding players. And speaking of redundancy, I want to talk about before we move on about Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright. A lot of guys said that he probably should have been a second round pick. Some even claim that he might be the best running back, best blocking back on the Dolphins roster right now, coming in from college. He might be he's a very good blocker. I want to just talk about Jalen Wright.
He's the best blocker on the Dolphins right now in the backfield. I mean, I know the pros totally different, and it's going to take some because that's a different animal coming at you around that corner than college. It's not a Florida Gator. That's for Steve coming around the corner.
Shout out
Um,
to co-host of the show, Steve Haddett.
um, it's a different animal, but you teach him just a little couple more techniques. That's important on third down, and he'll also give a that's a huge rest for Mostert and Ashan when they can take a couple series off and you just keep feeding this kid the ball, and then you go back to the other speed backs. It was a great pick. I had him. This is the truth. I had him rated as my top back in the draft. I did not like the kid from Texas. Nothing against him, but I didn't think he'd be a fit in our offense. And another injury prone guy. So, but I had him as the top back. I had him around the second round, third round.
Absolutely. I think is our special guest for today, Jake Mendel from Another Dolphins Podcast, to say that the Washington picks from the two guys named Washington we picked in the draft should be called the Washington Square.
Yes.
That's very funny. The Dolphins have been looking for wide receiver help. Tyler Boyd has been into the Dolphins. We're going to talk a lot about that during the later part of the show. But Dolphins going with two wide receivers certainly was pretty interesting. Two kind of different wide receivers. But I'm going to take back, I believe, a little bit more later with Jake about that Tash Washington probably was going to play a lot of special teams. The changes on the special team return game, Dolphins need someone who has good hands, has, some capability. So those both are pretty good picks because Paris is only 1 year deal for the next season. So the Dolphins
Correct.
again are stacking the layer. What are your thoughts about the Washington Square?
I would be a little worried if I was one of the receivers not named Waddle or Hill right now.
Yes.
especially if I fully expect them to go out. I still think they're going to go out for veteran help and find one more guy. Just a 1 year deal. They don't. That's all they need for now. And then you see if you can develop Washington squared. That's great. Kid from Virginia, amazing slot receiver, not a third receiver, a slot receiver. Uh, not big by any means, but he can jump out of the building. He's 42-inch vertical. I think he led college football in receptions, and he led in um, breaking tackles and yards after catch. Which is what you want. He runs a 4.47. Like the one guy said, that's slow on Miami, but that's really not slow at all because there's straight line speed, like the kid from Texas had, who the Bills handed over to Kansas City. And then there's football speed.
They did it again.
Yeah, they love doing that. That's
They're
good.
doing that. That was that's karma. When they get eliminated again, but the players don't come crying. They did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's football speed once you put pads on. Um, uh, uh, Back to ancient years where there was no face masks or anything when I played football. Um, I'm not that old, but I feel it right now. Um,
Ah,
I wasn't the fastest 40 time runner, but I was a lot faster on the field than I was in just running a sprint. That's for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. So next, I want to ask you to hold a little bit. So we're gonna have an interview with a special guest, Jake Mendel from Another Dolphins podcast.
All right.
Let's welcome a friend of the show from Another Dolphins podcast, Jake Mendel. Jake, welcome back to Fins TV.
Sammy, it's great to be here with you. May the 4th be with you. How you doing today?
Maybe for with you. Well, doing great. I asked you before the show. You're a Star Wars fan. You've been a long life Star Wars fan, Jake.
So I remember being 5 years old the first time Qui-Gon Jinn, spoilers, he died, and I took the VHS. We used to have these things called VHSs. I remember taking
Yes.
it out of the VCR, and that was the only time I've ever broken a VHS. I was so upset that Qui-Gon Jinn died in Star Wars Episode 1 that they somehow suckered me into being a lifelong fan. I don't know how that worked, but I guess like being a Dolphins fan, we just like the pain and the sorrow.
So Episode 1 was your first Star Wars movie?
First Star Wars movie. Yep, I remember that. First Lego set. I had the speed bike chase race from
Oh, wow.
the Battle of Endor. Yeah, so I see your setup here, and I gotta ask, a lot of bias towards that 456 you got going on.
Oh, that's basically because we're collaborating with the Fintroopers. This episode is powered by the Fintroopers. You'll see if you're not following on Twitter, on X at Fintroopers, they're awesome. They do great work. Great collaboration. We're doing a collaboration with them. So basically, that's why we're going to the dark side in this episode of Fins TV.
I respect it. I like it.
Well, the draft. Mixed bag of emotions, mixed bag of opinions on the draft. A lot of positive, a lot of negative. But I want to start with, what are your thoughts on Chad Robinson? Dolphins. Sometimes some people say they reached on the pick. Some people say that they basically got a great developmental player that could be a great player for years to come. What are your opinion on Chad Robinson?
I think you kind of just hinted at it there. It's all about the development. This is someone, he had a 13% pressure rate in college. He was second in time to pressure, 2.28 seconds. That also sounds like a Tua Tagovailoa pass rate at that quickness. But he was third in overall pressure rate at 18.7%. And what I'm working around here is that I'm not giving you the exact sack numbers or the tackle numbers because what the Dolphins invested in here is the future. It's not necessarily someone who's going to come in and play week one, and that's upsetting to some people. I totally get that. We were speaking before the show. Troy Fautanu was right there for the taking for the Dolphins, went one pick before to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Mike McDaniel said something. I think it was last offseason. I mean, if he could every year, he'd be taking an edge rusher early in the NFL draft. This is the first time the Dolphins have had a first-round pick since Mike McDaniel has become head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So we probably should have listened to that a little bit. And there was about 24 hours before the draft where I was starting to warm up to Jared Verse from Florida State as someone who, like, all right, I kind of get it. I see what the Dolphins are doing here. I really didn't want him to go defensive tackle. Like, I loved Christian Wilkins. I love what he did for this team, but you kind of feel if you just draft another defensive tackle, are you just like chasing your tail? Are you like, I kind of wanted them to try something different. So what they're doing here, Chop Robinson, you have someone who can step in right away, play a little bit as Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb recovers, but the Dolphins are hoping to really strike gold 2-3 years down the road when you're looking for someone in their prime next to Jalen Phillips. In the grand scheme of things, we're hoping that the Dolphins continue to be pushing for the playoffs, which means they're going to continue to draft near the end of the first round. When you don't have those guaranteed blue chip players, you got to go by feel. The run on defensive ends started at 15 with the Colts, and the Dolphins ended it by drafting Chop at 21. I think what they're doing is just taking those shots at those freak athletes that as you draft lower and lower in the draft order, you're not going to have chances at these guys because they're just going to go off the board so quickly.
Absolutely. We had our draft mock draft in Fins TV. We ended up picking Burst. It was the guy who was available. Eddie Chappell, our columnist for the Pro Dolphins, DolphinsTalk.com. He is now writing for Dolphins Talk. And he wanted Chuck Robinson. He was pounding the table for Chuck Robinson. The attributes are there. You can see Burst probably is close to his ceiling, but Chuck Robinson, his ceiling is way higher. So he can develop in a huge play for years to come. We told him before the show. Jason Taylor was not a finished product. Of course, he went to the third round for the Dolphins, but it took a long time and a lot of help from Nick Saban for Jason Taylor to develop as a run stopper. So Chuck Robinson probably could develop into a very good player.
Yeah, and you just spoke on it too. I mean, you have Bradley Chubb in the building, a certified professional who is one of the leaders on this team. If you look at overthecap.com, he's right at the top, getting paid the most on this team, which makes you kind of scratch your heads like, why are we doing another edge rusher in the first round? But it's the leadership that you have in someone like Bradley Chubb, the leadership you're going to have in Jalen Phillips. I like to joke that you already see his number 15 up in the rafters just because the potential is always there. He has such a high standard of play when he's on the field where you kind of can warm up to bringing in that other edge rusher. He has time to develop. People like to think of this as like what the Dolphins did in 2017 with Charles Harris, and I just have such a hard time agreeing with that because the Dolphins at that point in time, it was Chris Greer's second year as the general manager, but Mike Tannenbaum was running the show.
Absolutely.
And one thing we're seeing with Greer running the show is he does a pretty good job of putting the roster in a situation where if the season started tomorrow, we can play. We might not have depth at every position, but we can roster 53 and be content about it. So having this lineup is so interesting because the Dolphins didn't have to get an edge rusher, throw him into the fire, knowing all his weaknesses, understanding that he only has a spin move and praying that he can make everything work. Chop's going to get a little more time to develop, and I think that's something that's, one, exciting, but I understand the stress because, you drafted someone in the first round. You want to see them out there week one and not think about it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that post-traumatic syndrome from Charles Harris still lives with the Dolphins. It's not the same player. I think his score was 4.81 or something like that. He was a slow player. It's not the same kind of player. I know that's comparisons are ridiculous. But going to you talk a little bit about it. A lot of people a lot of pundits say that this draft is basically a draft for 2025. That the players are underdeveloped. You can probably see them contributing not in 2024 and 2025. Therefore, the Dolphins have no shot at winning the division, winning the players, etc., etc. But I want to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the draft class as a whole? Do you think that this draft class can contribute this year for the Dolphins?
I think people forget how long a year is and how many different players play in a single season. I don't know if anyone would be able to confidently say how many games Jonathan Harris played for the Miami Dolphins last season. But what I do know is we've all quit jobs before. I hope people are lucky enough where they've never had to quit a job before. But we've all had those changes, and the Dolphins have two players who could be retiring at the end of the year in Teron Armstead and Kendall Lamb. And I banged the Patrick Paul drum, not because of what he's going to do for the Dolphins in week one, but I think come December, come January, where the Dolphins are in a spot, you got to go God knows where, Buffalo, wherever it's going to be very cold to play, maybe postseason games, maybe late season games. I think there's a legitimate shot that if Patrick Paul can pick things up, learn from Teron Armstead, learn from Kendall Lamb, knowing that Lamb and potentially Armstead might be retiring a month or two down the road, is it really a crazy, outlandish thing to say come December, come January, a 23-year-old, 6'7", 330-pound Patrick Paul can't be a plus for the Dolphins compared to two guys on the verge of retirement? That's one scenario where I don't want to kind of write the script for someone like Teron Armstead, but you just know that there's going to be a scenario. Like, no matter how much depth you have, everybody's name is going to be called at one point. You never know what's going to come. So that's someone who I think eventually is going to jump in. Looking at the running back, sorry, his name just completely slipped out of my mind, Jalen Wright. I don't know if it's going to happen early for him. I think what we might see is what we saw with Devon Achane, that 70-point game with the Broncos was just so crazy, such an outlier. But maybe the Dolphins love to have two running backs on the field at the same time. And a lot of the time, it's going to be Mostert and Achane, maybe Jeff Wilson early as Wright's figuring things out. But for him, I could see maybe being that second running back on the field, having a 40-yard run, just something being that fourth or fifth option that just totally takes advantage of it. Opposing defense just with that speed he has. He won't be a day one starter. He won't be the day one backup with how deep this Miami Dolphins running back group is. But it's another scenario where middle of the season, everyone's dealing with injuries. You can see him really, kick the doors down. And sorry, I'm going on a little rant here, but one other name I wanted to mention is Mo
Please go.
Kamara. He said he had a wonderful quote where he was very frustrated. He was drafted in the 5th round. But he did say he wanted to thank the quote-unquote lovely Miami Dolphins for drafting him. He's someone who plays so physical and so violent. I already see Dolphins Twitter going in an uproar where this is someone who has maybe a 5-pressure game or a 2-sack game, whether it's week 3 of the preseason in the quote-unquote dress rehearsal. Maybe it's week 3 where he has a great matchup on the outside. I already see Dolphins Twitter getting so upset when Kamara has an awesome performance and Chop Robinson is still trying to figure things out. I already see that scenario coming to life. But Mo Kamara just seems like someone who he plays so violent. It's so flashy to watch him play. He's so physical where if he gets a matchup where he can just go to town, he could have a huge performance for the Dolphins early in his career.
Absolutely. The Dolphins drafted in the 90s, I think it was Lorenzo Romeo and Joe Mixon. They complemented each other so well. And you can see Kamara and Chop Robinson complementing each other. Probably the third downs, the pass rush, Chop Robinson could do the job, and for the rush up, Kamara is probably better developed.
Yeah, someone like Kamara, he fell to the 5th round. I think you kind of hit on it there. You know where his ceiling is. You don't know how much better he's going to be than the player he is right now. And Chop Robinson, right? You're just putting on the timer and just waiting for it to erupt.
Yeah, they're gonna send him in. That's what you used to do with Lorenzo Romero, and we can't wait at first. Can't wait develop a very good player, but at first he was a pass rusher, and they send him on 3rd down and go get the quarterback. That's what they do. So they have so many opportunities in the office. Jake, I have to ask you, what's your favorite player in this draft? The favorite pick from this draft for the Dolphins?
So I've already raved about a couple players, so I do want to bring up Taj Washington as, let's get hyped about a 7th rounder, right? Because it's early May. We have nothing else to talk about. The Dolphins haven't always hit on these late round wide receivers. My buddy Houts, he has always fallen in love with these late round guys.
Shout out to Houts.
Isaiah Ford, Malcolm Perry, whoever it is, Preston Williams, these are guys that Josh has always fallen in love with, and I think Taj Washington is right up that alley, not only because they called him the Yak King in college while at USC, but he's surprisingly physical for being such a smaller dude. He'll go out there, he'll play special teams. He's actually a solid pass blocker where you could kind of see him maybe stepping in and filling the role as that 6th wide receiver on the roster. And then all of a sudden, I remember, just to bring up some more bad memories, a couple of years ago, you had guys like Tanner Connor and Braylon Sanders have opportunities one-on-one and just miss it by this much. I could see Taj Washington being someone who makes a name for himself with special teams, makes a name for himself maybe with a couple good blocks to open up some big plays, and then all of a sudden, in that one game, maybe you're down a touchdown to Buffalo, he's just running wide open, free with that speed he has and takes advantage of a big play.
Absolutely. With the changes in special teams this year, you can see all those players, along with Birds contributing to the return game. The change is going to be huge. I think people are not conscious how much the NFL is going to change with these rules on kick return. So probably those 3 players, the running backs and the running back and the 2 wide receivers, are going to be huge for the Dolphins in the return game.
Another name to watch, Anthony Schwartz, a dynamic speedster. He's been around the league for a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
this new
Got him jealousy,
class of,
right?
yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
came from Cleveland, and
Yes. Late season.
he he kind of feels like someone who his speed and the way he can kind of just go fits the new kickoff rule kind of makes it feel arcadey. I don't know if that makes it like makes
I
sense
get,
at
I
all a
get it.
little bit, but the way everything's going to happen fairly quickly compared to having guys running all the way down the field, I could see him being someone that we haven't heard from in a few years, and that speed being perfect for kick returns.
Absolutely. Chris Greer has been criticized a lot, basically for missing the late rounds. He has not had many picks since he picked the draft because he's been a general manager for a long time. Like you say, Mike Tannenbaum, that
Mhm.
ass clown used to be the one who controlled the picks. But he's been criticized for not having the greatest success in the late rounds. But this he's been praised for having a very strong late round draft. What are your opinions? Is this could be Chris Greer's best draft as a overall for for Chris Ware?
I think it could be. I think you see, like, the goal is to have pathways for all these different guys to hit the field, and you can definitely see that. It's a little concerning because we started the draft with some obvious needs, and we
Yes.
left the draft with some same obvious needs. So I don't know if right now we could even try to have that debate, because I could see a lot of people saying, well, left guard's still an issue, safety's still an issue, and so on. But 3-4 years down the road, where maybe Jalen Wright is your running back one, while Devon Achane is this versatile, maybe he'll get 7 carries and 7 receptions per game, and that's how the Dolphins can divvy up the targets there. As you got Patrick Paul absolutely manhandling guys on that left side, things could look a little different. I do like what someone like Mo Kamara can give you early on. Chop Robinson, I'm a little fearful there are going to be some high lowlights maybe early on where it's going to
Yes.
be a little ugly at times, but I think you can give
A
him,
baptism by fire, as they say.
yes,
It's gonna
that's a
be
perfect way to put it. It's not going to be pretty at times, but I think that's going to be a great way for him to learn and develop. And then come week 10, week 11, our tone can be looking feeling totally different when you have Chubb back and Phillips relatively healthy. You can line those guys up inside. I think Robinson has actually experience lining up in the A and the B gap too. So the Dolphins will be able to do a lot of different things. But edge will look like a weakness early on. So it's going to be a little rough. But yeah, I do think this draft class has some good potential to be one of the better ones. And that's considering Miami started it without a third or a fourth round pick.
absolutely. We've been so accustomed every single year. The hot start, the Dolphins start hot. For Madonna, even more than eh, every single year, the Dolphins start hot with Madonna, but they fail at the end. Maybe this is the year where players are starting to develop and down the stretch, like those Belichick Patriots used to do. Dolphins or every other team was ahead, and at the end, Brady started to get hot, and that was the end. So maybe this is the year of the Dolphins. You touched a little bit on the what's next for the Dolphins. OBJ is still there out there. Dawson Rice are still there. Safeties are still there. What's your opinion? Should the Dolphins make a move, to fill those holes? Probably with some experience. They got a lot of receivers, but not any receiver with the size and strength and length of OBJ, for example.
Yeah, it really caught me by surprise. Obviously, the Dolphins started speaking with OBJ. I think the report is there's been 2 different contracts given out. I was caught off guard by how much he did play outside. I kind of saw him as that maybe a slot wide receiver, someone who works pretty close to the quarterback. No, but he's a boundary guy. He can go win those one-on-one battles to the outside, and that's such a great argument for someone like OBJ. It's just the Dolphins are going to get about $18 million a month from now, come June 1st, for the Xavier Howard cut, but you wonder if OBJ is the best way to use that money. I mean, the Dolphins targeted, wide receiver threes virtually never. I mean, I think last year you had Cedric Wilson averaging like 2.5 targets per game. So, like, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze with someone like Odell Beckham, or are the Dolphins going to do more with someone like Jonnu Smith, get him more involved?
Exactly.
Nobody targeted tight ends fewer than the Dolphins did last year. A big reason is because there wasn't really anyone to target. I mean, I like the name Jody Fortson. Someone has a red zone target, a bigger body. And I mentioned it earlier, someone like Devon Achane, I could see more targets going his way. Salvan Ahmed was a guy that the Dolphins absolutely loved throwing the ball to last year before he got hurt. So I think the Dolphins are, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are such big volume monsters. They're going to average close to 20, targets going their way per game. So you do wonder if you have enough targets left in the chamber for another wide receiver, or if Mike McDaniel's planning to, make things work at tight end. I mean, you still have Alec Ingold back there, the highest paid fullback. So there are some scenarios here where you wonder if, like, if you're giving OBJ $10 million a year, is that really making your roster that much better?
Absolutely, you really run the money. I was going to talk about that. Albert Ingle, I expected more from him in the passing game last season, and he was really underutilized. So that was a surprise for me. Well, Jake, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the fullback position in Miami was so unique because, one, 2 years ago, you had Alec Ingold out there with a broken arm running passing routes. And that was just it was a scenario where it's like, we're kind of helpless here. And then last year, they were trying to feed Hill so much. They were trying to
Yes.
feed Waddle so much. Why are you paying Alec Ingold to be the highest paid fullback, especially if you have 4 or 5 guys, we'll say 3, 4 to be safe, guys getting paid as the top player at their position? You don't have a lot of money for like the middle tier contracts. I think Alec Ingold could be a great piece to this offense, but until you use him, it's just he's just sitting there.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, I want to thank you for your time. We're a big fan of you and House on another Dolphins podcast. You're doing a great job with Odyssey and WQAM on their podcast. Please check them out. Where can they find you on social media, Jake?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at jmendel94. Be ranting about the Dolphins there, and you hit the nail on the head. YouTube WQAM 560. You can find another Dolphins podcast.
Every single time you knock it out of the park. You do a great job. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for being Fizz TV. You're a friend of the show. It's a friend of the show, and we really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate all the kind words, Sammy. May the fourth be with you.
May the fourth be with you. Troopers collaboration. We're gonna talk about some Miami Dolphins as Star Wars characters, and we're gonna start right off with Mike McDaniel. Eddie, any guess who Mike McDaniel will be? What's your opinion about that? Who do you think Mike McDaniel could be according to the Fintroopers?
That's I have struggled with this. It is hard for me to guess on who Mike McDaniel would be. I guess because he flies off the seat of his pants, Han Solo.
Oh, that's a really good guess. Let's see what they show us. Actually, the Fintroopers they chose Han Solo. That's awesome. You get a point. That's amazing. Actually, Han Solo is a great guess. Let's read our notes from our friend the Fintroopers over here. Let me get to the notes over here, and there you go. Mike McDaniel is Han Solo. He definitely isn't half-witted. He's not scruffy looking, but I doubt he's even a nerf herder. But Mike McDaniel comes with all the swagger and confidence of the galaxy's boldest smuggler. Sometimes his overconfidence on the field can land him on sticky situations, but he has unquestioned loyalty to his players and will always deliver results with their best interests at heart. Mike McDaniel is the ideal guy to turn the rag bunch of mercenaries to success. You got that perfectly, Mike McDaniel as Han Solo. You got the first one right on the money. That's awesome, Eddie.
That's it. I'm done.
Good night, everybody. That's Joe Costanza.
Good night, everybody.
Let's go to the second. Let's see who's next. Next is Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb. That could be a difficult one. And any idea? I don't think you're gonna guess this one. Any idea who the Fintroopers chose for Bradley Chubb? Who would be your guest?
Bradley Chubb. Let's Kylo Ren.
That's not a bad guess, but actually I like their choice very much. A Death Trooper.
Oh, I like the Death Trooper. That's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it. Bradley Chubb, that's a Death Trooper. Is there any other trooper you want to see less hunting you down as you try to escape the clutches of the Dolphins defense? Specializing in lethality and brutality, Chubb is a veteran soldier who relies on his years of training as a pass rushing specialist commando. Once you see him, it's already too late. You're out of time. I gotta say I love that. That's a great pick. Let's see who's next. Next we have Jalen Ramsey. Oh, that's be interesting. Who you had any guess who Jalen Ramsey could be?
Let's see. Cocky, good. Man, I'm completely lost on Ramsey.
Let's see. Let's go to the choice. They have a tie interceptor. That's a very
All
interesting
right,
choice.
that's good. I didn't even think about it that way.
Jalen Ramsey tie interceptor. What else? The main The man isn't human. Jalen Ramsey is a finely tuned piece of imperial engineering, an elite element of the Dolphins' defensive fleet who's summoned to turn the tides of any aerial battle, equipped with the athleticism and maneuverability to see through the skies. He tracks the enemy's every move and strikes with unparalleled precision to disable offensive targets. Actually, that's a great description. The
Very good.
Chris of the Three Troopers is doing a great job with this. I
They're
love it.
That's awesome.
That's
Fintroopers.
outstanding. Next, we have Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips a lot of athleticism, a lot of intensity, but sometimes a lot of power. Who do you think the Jalen Ramsey? I'm sorry, Jalen Phillips could be?
Chewbacca.
Actually, I like that guess, but let's see what he got. Jalen Phillips is Rancor.
Okay, a Rancor.
A Rancor. Jalen Phillips is a Rancor. Monstrous, aggressive. Even his muscle has muscles. Working out in the pits of the Jabba Palace is almost inevitable that Jalen Phillips will return to unleash havoc on opponents in 2024. Quarterbacks beware, beware. Long arms and tenacious relentless aggression. The Rancor is ready to devour anything he gets his hands on. Actually, that's a great choice. Jalen Phillips certainly for sure. Uh, you know, seems possessed to come back better and stronger than ever. You can see his workouts. You can see the guy is a Greek Adonis. That guy
Yeah.
is working every single time. We wish every single time a speedy recovery for him. Hopefully, he'll come back and better than ever. Next, we have Javon Holland. Any idea who Javon Holland could be?
Javon Holland.
Actually, I love this choice.
That's right. You already have the choice, so you don't get to guess. You just leave me hanging all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the fun part of this time.
Ja- I should have did some more Star Wars research, even though I know everything.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. This one, don't overthink it.
All right, I'm gonna go with Boba Fett.
See again. Like I said, don't overthink it. And the choice is it's Boba Fett. Let's go to the notes from the Fintroopers over here. Javon Holland is Boba Fett, a headhunter, a mercenary for hire, a feared adversary, and soon he'll be looking for his biggest payday yet. On the field, Javon Holland is Boba Fett, ruthless, efficient, and always locked on his target with ferocity and determination. However, unlike Boba Fett, who's a man of notoriously few words, get the man on social media and the upfield version of Javon Holland transformed into Jar Jar Binks with a cell phone. I love that. That's awesome. The pin troopers, Chris of the troopers, something else. That's really funny.
His social media is questionable sometimes.
Yeah, he doesn't like too much YouTubers. Obviously, he's not watching because he's not gonna like that.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, let's see who's next. Next, we have Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle. That's a certainly interesting choice. Who do you think Jalen Waddle could be?
Jalen Waddle. Let me think this one through. Without thinking, I'm going to go with Finn.
That's an interesting choice. Darth Maul.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, Jalen Waddle. That is Darth Maul. Usually quiet, sometimes mysterious, always deadly. Don't let this cheeky smile fool you. There is, there is, there is focused determination behind those eyes. Jalen Waddle, athletic prowess, and scoring ability, making a force-wielding assassin who can elude defenders and strike with daily grace. As with Darth Maul, Jalen Waddle struggled to get enough screen time in 2023, but that's funny. But prepared to watch him center stage of the Dolphins offense in 2024 and establish himself as a force wielding maniac. I love that. Jalen Waddle as Darth Maul. That's something like that's a really well pick. One of my all time favorites, Darth Maul. Who we have left? Let's see who we have left. I think we have one more. Of course, we have. Let me see. Tyreek Hill. Okay, the cheetah. Who could the cheetah be?
Let's see. I'm going to say the cheetah is Luke Skywalker.
Okay, let's go. A lot of speed. The speeder bike.
Speeder bike, yeah, I'm not thinking of speed.
Tyreek Hill, the speeder bike. Try to outrun him, and you'll be in trouble. With enough elusiveness to sieve through defenders like the Forest of Endor, Tyreek Hill's simultaneously and dangerously little weapon, an expensive wild roller coaster ride. Indeed. As with speedster bikes, extra caution should always be taken. One wrong turn, and whether on the field or off it, you could turn things into a fireball into an instant. Yeah, he's certainly very.
That was right on.
Yeah, that's certainly he's certainly a dangerous ride right now.
That
Hopefully,
is
he
so
has
right
some.
on.
We're hoping for safe travels
Yes.
for the cheetah Tyreek Hill. Absolutely. Let's see who's next. Oh, our final choice, our quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. Who you think Tua could be?
There's only one choice for him. It's Ray.
Oh, it's Darth Vader, and this is gonna make a lot of sense for a lot of people. Darth Vader, Tua Tagovailoa is Darth Vader. Dividing the galaxy between fearsome loyalists and rebellious outcasts, there is no
Okay.
other comparison to be made here. He brings perfect balance to the fan base. A quarterback prospect with midichlorian levels previously unseen and considered destiny for greatness, he suffered injuries from which few could ever recover. Metal implants and all, two are reborn as a Miami Dolphin and the appointed leader of the team. The franchise has brought him the franchise has bought into him as the chosen one, and believe his powers can grow further to help them in the galaxy in victory. Absolutely. Uh,
That
he's our,
couldn't be more perfect than that.
that's absolutely awesome. That's a great way to say it. Absolutely. Hopefully, at the end of the day, Tua can bring balance to the force.
Yeah, I said Ray because he's still learning. He's a prodigy of Luke, and then he'll get there and dominate everybody.
Absolutely. So Eddie, next I want to talk a little bit to you about what's next for the Dolphins. Of course, we had a lot of work done for the Dolphins, but certainly a lot of things can still happen. The Dolphins have been mentioned to OBJ, to Justin Simmons, to Jamel Adams, but you had a great article on DolphinsTalk.com when you talk about a thing. You mentioned Khalil Campbell. I want to know your thoughts about what you basically said in the article about how the Dolphins have some work to do.
They came out of the draft set up pretty well, but if they still have plenty of holes to fill, and they need to be filled with experienced players. I came up with a full proof plan for just signing a couple players to a 1 year deal, and I think it'll get them to win the division and get a home playoff game. And I believe the first win in 24 years, which I cannot believe that I have to say they have not won a playoff game in 24 years.
That's absolutely incredible when you think about it.
Um, First, they need to start with the defensive line interior. They have a lot of fill-in pieces. Zach Sealer, he's set. You got him. You can trust him. Just if he went down, you would be in deep trouble at the defensive tackles. Now, I didn't want him to draft one because I didn't like any of them unless you were picking one in the third or fourth round, and we didn't have a fourth round pick until we did. And well, so I looked through all the guys out there, and the only guy I came up with that's a perfect fit is Calais Campbell. He's 37 years old. Yes, I get that. But I do believe he had 9.5 sacks last year for the Falcons. He can play in the interior of your defense. He can play on the edge of your defense. He went to the University of Miami. He's huge. He's 6'8". He puts pressure up the middle if you need him to, or on the edge. I think he'd be a perfect fit to round out the defensive line.
That leadership also will have a lot.
Um, what was that, Sammy? Sorry, it broke up.
I'm sorry. I mean that his leadership was certainly help a lot.
Oh, the leadership is off the charts. It's just if he wants to come to Miami and if Miami wants him. I mean, he like I said, he's 37, but I'm saying 1 year contract. So
Former man of the year, certainly everything, respected alongside the whole league, everything, and there's a board of leadership. You can say there's a board of leadership when Wilkins departed the Dolphins. So that's a great case for someone to try to fill that board in the defensive line.
yeah, I saw some. There's like I said, there's other names out there, but there's nobody with the experience and still productive like he is. Surprised he's still out there. My next the next one was tough on which position to focus on next, but since they only have three safeties, they have to get another body back there, and he's got to be. I don't know what Anthony Weaver's defense is going to be, but I can guess he's picked up a lot from the Ravens. I know he studied under Rex Ryan, and that's a three safety look. And if you only have three safeties on your team, that's a problem. The third safety for that type of defense is more on the line. So, as much I love Justin Simmons, he's probably one of the best players out there. He must want too much money, or he's just waiting for the right spot. And he's waiting for June 1st to open up, for people to open up, or for some people to get cut. But the guy I really like for this position, and a lot of people can't stand him, is Jamal Adams. If you're going to have a guy up, you might as well have a guy up there that can hit. He can cover a tight end. He's not going to cover receivers because he's proven to be not great. But you're not looking for that. You're looking for somebody to lay the smackdown on a quarterback. I would love for him to go up against his old team, the Jets. He'd have a chip on his shoulder for them 2 games. I'd love for him to lay a hit on the new kid in New England, Drake May. And of course, I would love for him to catch Allen not looking and hit him. I just think he'd be perfect. And he adds physicality to a defense and toughness. And I mean, you can't go wrong with either guy, but that was my case for Jamal Adams on that.
Absolutely. The Ravens played a lot of three safety defense last season, so the case can be made for a third for a third safety. You can see a lot of that depth on the defensive line. The offensive line still can get a lot of some help. You touch about everybody talks about Dolphins Reisner, but you have a different choice for the Dolphins.
I did. I had Andrews Pete. Reisner would be fine if they signed him. Hey, I would be happy. But you get versatility with Pete. He played with Breeze, so you're looking at the same kind of quarterback he played with. And if Lamb goes down,
He played tackle and guard. He played both.
Head goes down or Lamb, he's going right there. You can switch him out. I think he'd be a perfect guard in this system. He's a little bit older too, but like I said, this is just a 1 year plan for this year for Miami. Don't break the bank, but you're getting 18 million in June. You might as well spend it on some good players, and I think he would be perfect, especially for protection for Tua. There's another kid from the Bears, another guy from the Bears that I don't think allowed a sack last year, and I don't have his name because I don't have my notes in front of me. That would work also, but Pete would be my first choice.
Absolutely, a lot of good veteran players are gonna. I'm probably thinking if I'm not gonna get the money I want, I'm not gonna go also through a whole training camp. Let
No,
me try the third wheel of the training camp.
should I?
If it's in Miami Heat, in Miami Heat and the Miami Sun, believe me, they're gonna have probably guys who probably want to stay and wait for a couple of weeks before signing with the Dolphins. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and my last thing was though they have to fill that third wide receiver. We touched on it earlier. I'm not comfortable with anybody filling in for Waddle or Hill for a game or two. Hopefully that would be it. I mean, if they miss any time at all, you got to go get one. It seems like Tyler Boyd has started his journey now, going to the teams that are desperate for wide receivers. I think he's going to end up with the Chargers. Um, my my pick, I still think OBJ is going to end up a Dolphin. I think it's almost like it's worked out, and I hope it is because I think he'd be perfect. Just not only is he a reliable third guy on that field, but if one of the guys went down, he's had it. He's done it before a million times. He can step right in for a game or two. Um, and I think he'd be explosive in McDaniel's offense. And my last guy was DJ Chark. I don't know. He's played with some pretty bad quarterbacks. When he played with a good quarterback, he put up over 1,000 yards and caught a lot of touchdowns. There's talk of him about him going back to Detroit from where he was before a couple years ago, I believe. But I think Miami better get on the ball and get one of these three guys because there's nobody really else out there that I can see, and they need a reliable backup just in case.
Absolutely. Basically, the Dolphins are not in a better position right now as wide receiver. Cedric Wilson was not expected to contribute last season. They took a pay cut, and there were so many times when he makes some clutch catches for the Dolphins. The
Yes.
Dolphins don't have a third receiver who can do that right
They were
now.
lucky
So,
they didn't cut him last year.
mhm,
That's my thought. I was like, he came in big a couple times.
absolutely. Well, I wanna thank you. A great job. Please check his. We're gonna link the article on dolphinstock.com. His article, so please check him out. I would want to thank the Fintroopers. This episode was powered by the Fintroopers. They do a great job. Every single on the description, every single uh, uh, a picture you've seen about the Star Wars, the Dolphins and Star Wars,
It's
made by
awesome.
the Fin Tour. It was a great job there in the UK. We want to thank you. We'll go to the Fins TV family. Of course, our special guest, uh, another of us podcast, Jake Mental, friend of the show, great as always. So, Eddie, thank you again. Thank you for another great edition of Fins TV.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was awesome. Got to do it again real soon.
Well, when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, but this is Star Wars weekend, so may the force be with you.
May the fourth be with you.